carries.
I resolutions. I-1, resolution by principal sponsor Alderperson Jan Mahalski to authorize use of city equipment for Labor Fest 2024. Finance recommended to approve 3-2 with one person abstaining.
Gentleman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to approve, first of all. And secondly,
Hit your button, sir. Is there a second?
okay,
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Gentleman
Yes, sir.
from the 3rd.
well, I know this is probably, I would like to open this up to a public hearing, first of all. So moved for a public hearing?
Moved and seconded to open up to a public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand at a public hearing. Anyone here to speak on item I-1?
Sir.
Anyone here to speak on I-1?
Yeah, Rick Gallo, 8036 18th Avenue, Kenosha, Wisconsin. I rise again to urge you to support this resolution. As I stated in citizens' comments, this is something that's been going on in our community for more than 40 years, and the city has been a co-sponsor. As I alluded to in our dates of transgression as we came forward with this proposal, this is something that's been discussed at City Hall since at least January, and we left there with the understanding on January 25th from the mayor, that Mayor Antaramian at the time, that the city would indeed co-sponsor the event. I would like to also point out, I've heard some numbers bandied about as far as what fees are being waived and whatnot. And I believe that the total amount of fees amounts to about $550. And the reason for that is because the park and the commission fees are not capped, but in accordance with the city's event planning guide, the picnic tables, garbage carts, benches, recyclable carts, whatnot is capped at $150 for a one-day event. So with the $300 park, the $100 concessions, and the $150, that would be $550 total. I think that's a relatively small amount for the city to put into this event. I mean, we have other events in the city like our 4th of July celebration that cost the city exponentially more than what Labor Fest cost. And I think it's, as I stated in citizen comments, this is something that's been going on in the United States for over 130 some years. So I would hope that nobody would oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak on item I-1? Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Gentleman from the 3rd, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, it's been argued to me that this would be kind of setting a precedent because we have not granted this same thing to other nonprofit organizations and churches that wanted to use parks. I don't think that this is precedent setting because, as Mr. Gallo has said, the city has sponsored this. This is not just like, them coming in and using the park, for their own purposes. This is a city event. This is a city event for a national holiday, just like 4th of July, as has been said, just like, other national holidays. And the city has partnered it. This is more akin, it's less akin to, some nonprofit using one of the city facilities, et cetera, than it is to say the city partnership with peanut butter and jams, et cetera. There are certain things that we do that are beneficial to the city as a whole, and this is basically a national holiday, and I'm very proud to have sponsored this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 5th.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I'm very shocked that two people on the Park Commission, one sponsored it, another one co-sponsored it, when we do not allow anybody anything for free. We stopped that a year ago. We have a new park director who said no to free. and no to free is no. If you do this, you're opening up a can of worms. Holy Rosary didn't get anything for free. Mount Carmel didn't get anything for free. The people who run the car show, who bring thousands of dollars in the city of Kenosha, got nothing for free. You open this up, you're in trouble. I'm voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 7th.
First of all, I'd like to say that my father was a union member for his entire life, starting from Nash and retiring in AMC in 1975. I attended Labor Fest when I was a kid. I myself was a union member with UAW as well as a painters union. I support unions. I support labor. But as an event organizer myself, working with nonprofits, I myself am paying more than $500 to do an event that I'm doing completely for free, giving all entire proceeds to scholarships within the city. And I agree with my colleague that this does set a precedent. What I guess the question would be also for Mr. Gallo, how much money does the event itself bring in for the AFL-CIO? Do we have numbers from last year? Is it a very profitable event?
You didn't have it last year.
Okay. But is this something that, I know it's something that happens on a regular basis.
Mr. Gallo?
This is not a huge moneymaker. We do make some money off of it, but I will tell you that the cost of putting it on largely overshadows what we make. So what we do is we take whatever profit we make from beer sales and put that into a separate fund that we use to do certain political education endeavors on behalf of the council. The cost of Labor Fest has ranged somewhere in the $8,000 range. So this is largely funded by contributions from local labor unions. Kenosha County used to be a huge contributor, and it's something that we do. It's more for the community benefit than it is for us to make money. We also open it up without cost to nonprofits and local organizations to come and make some money that they can then use for their organizations at Labor Fest as well. In fact, this year, we sent out something like 85 letters to local organizations and nonprofits, inviting them to come and be a part of Labor Fest and have a booth, sell items to make money for their organization without cost to us and without charge for the booth. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. I think your actions are commendable. Your group is worthwhile. But I also would argue that there's plenty of other organizations out there that benefit the community, that aren't taking any for themselves, but are yet still being charged that fee. So I believe that's a bad precedent to set. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 2nd.
Yes, thank you, sir. With the sponsor's permission, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. I think this is something for the entire community to show up for. It is a national holiday. The city has a hand on Thanksgiving Day, at Christmas for the tree lighting. I think it's very, very actual small piece that the city can do to enable the community to honor the observance of the holiday, which has a long history here. And lately has frankly had difficulty coming up with locations. It's been held at a lot of different parks. However, it was on private property for the longest time. So the precedent's in place. So again, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the pleasure of attending one of the festivals mentioned by my fellow alderperson, and I enjoyed myself immensely. I had some stuffed dough, fried dough. I had a meatball bomber. I had a sausage bomber. And I was proud to go to Holy Rosary in my district. However, nowhere did I see the city of Kenosha was a co-sponsor to Holy Rosary. It's a great event. It's put on by tireless volunteers. But that's not a city of Kenosha sponsored event. We're not a partner with Holy Rosary. Now, I'll sit up here and fight all day for them to have that festival. Sit up here all day for them to have their liquor license, their event, special event. I will do that because it's a great event. And it honors the heritage of that church in the neighborhood, and generations of families come back. Even though they don't live in the neighborhood anymore, they come back to Holy Rosary. Why am I talking about this in reference to this resolution? Because a false equivalency is still a false equivalency. We are not comparing apples to apples. We are not comparing what Holy Rosary does, what Mount Carmel does, what St. Peter's does, all these which are great festivals, which really give a character to this city, which gives it such an amazing community that still supports these churches. It's beautiful. But I'd also tell you that labor built this city. Somewhere in Europe, southern Italy, someone heard about Kenosha and the jobs that were here. And they left one of the most beautiful sections of Europe to come to Kenosha to help build this community. But where did they work? What union shops did they work in? Who protected that worker's right when no one else did? Labor. This is just as big as part of our heritage as as Mount Carmel, as Holy Rosary, as any of these other celebrations that happen in our community that we are proud to support. What's the difference? The city is a partner. That's the difference. I don't see an equivalency. I will definitely support the motion. And I'm going to ask something that I never, ever ask. I'm asking that be a co-sponsor to this, please. If I don't do the work, I don't put my name on it. But I think that as a reflection of how integral labor is to our community, celebrating that is an important thing, to the point that I will break my precedent and ask to be put on as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the first.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll start by saying that I'm a firm believer and a supporter of labor, and I come from a strong family legacy, a grandfather from Italy, probably from where the gentleman is mentioning, Calabria, the vast majority of immigrants. Grandfather on my other side that immigrated from Denmark, started a union contracting company. My father took it over as union contractor. I've had union in my blood all my life. Couple of things. First of all, using the reference for church festivals, there's only one church festival I'm aware of that's actually in a city park, and that's Mount Carmel. And Mount Carmel, in fact, does pay the reduced not-for-profit fee. And as far as I know, since I've chaired the Park Commission, which has been several years, we have never waived those fees. There may have been some things that were overlooked, kind of under the radar, so to speak, and there was a lot of dialogue and maybe some emotion associated with it, but we have not waived those fees as long as I have. And the gentleman that's sponsoring this ordinance supported not waiving those fees. Getting back to the April 8th meeting agenda item, if the clerk wouldn't mind, can you read the way that was recognized? There was nothing about waiving fees. That application, from my memory, came to my agenda identical as any other event. It didn't, in my memory, did not say something about city-sponsored. There's been a lot of dialogue about what's been happening traditionally, and I'm also not aware that this event has ever taken place on a city park with a city sponsor. Maybe before my time it was. So I would say from an apples-to-apples standpoint, that is very different, okay? The numbers that I was given from city staff for the not-for-profit status they have is $1,125 in total. And it was broken down in all the different categories of the fee structure. If it was a not-for-profit, it'd be $2,100. So it's already a very, very significant difference. You know, I could go on and on about the economic impact and things like that. It's all speculative. But to me, to have to talk to a constituent or to talk to somebody that we've said no to for very, very worthwhile causes, very, very great not-for-profits, where they turn all the proceeds back and say, we're going to waive the fees for somebody, but not for everybody, is not something I can support. I don't know how I can actually argue that. If it is going to be a city-sponsored event, then it should be recognized like that, okay? It didn't come to my committee. And by the way, I was not there on that day. I was excused. I was out of town at the time. But if it would have been recognized at a city-sponsored event where we were waiving fees on the agenda that I have responsibility for, I can guarantee you there would have been some questions. If this discussion and dialogue started in January, everybody knows what the date is right now, right? We're 1 week out for the event. Why did this not come to the attention of us so that we're not sitting here arguing this, you know, with not any other meetings available from this point forward? We could have worked this out and tried to figure out a way to do this. Now, if we defer it, we have no way to really address it without special meetings. So I'm just, a lot of emotions, I guess. I really love this event and want it to go forward. If somebody can explain to me how I can say the way it was recognized on that agenda, which is the agenda that we approved, that we treat that any differently than any other not-for-profit organization by coming forward with a resolution, I'm all ears. From January till now, and now it's the first time we're really hearing about it when it gets recognized on agenda as a resolution, doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. It really doesn't. And I'm all ears in this one. I will tell you, I'm going to say it for the third, maybe the fourth time, I have no way of explaining this the way it's properly recognized on an agenda, while I would waive the fees, all the fees, by the way, not just some of the fees, all the fees for this event, and any other not-for-profit organization has good intentions in the way that they distribute their funds and everything else, and say, well, it's different because this is a different organization. It's not your organization. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 5th.
Thank you, Your Honor, for letting me speak again. I cannot comment, I cannot, what the Alderman of the First District said is just perfect. If we do it for one, we got to do it for everybody. And you guys have no idea what can of worms you're opening up. I was a union rep for 25 years, so I have no problem with unions at all. The problem is we're supposed to be fiscally smart with the city. We're going to give away $1,100. I know it's not a lot of money, but you're doing it for one, $1,100, $1,100, $1,100, $2,500. It adds up. Come on, people.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 7th.
Thank you. So, I'm sorry, I yield.
Thank you, sir. There's a queue. Gentleman from the 11th.
I wasn't sure who was first mentioned co-sponsor, but if I'm not, I want to be a co-sponsor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anything else? Okay. Lady from the 4th.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to try to do better than I did in finance when I totally got lost and misconstrued some stuff and caused a little bit of a ruckus in finance. So I apologize to my fellow finance members. So am I understanding this correct, that this actually went before license and permits in April?
Parks, April 8th.
April 8th, it went through to Parks and it was approved. Parks, that's what I said.
Not for waiving the fee, just like any other event.
Oh, okay, all right. I want to make sure I understand. Okay, everybody's yelling at me.
clerk can verify this, but the way I understood, the way I remember, is that it came to us like any other event that would basically say subject to, and the associated fees. And the clerk can verify that there was nothing in my memory, I review all the agendas as part of my obligation
Right.
to approve them, and from my recollection, and I believe the clerk can verify, it was just like any other event at the band shell. The Peace Tree event we had would be very much like this. The fencing, the band shell, the benches, the chairs, very, very much like that, okay? Both not-for-profit, I believe, right, et cetera. And my recollection is there was no request to waive. We have had people that have come forward and asked to waive fees. And as long as I've been on the committee and chaired it, I personally have never supported waiving the fees, and I don't believe we've ever waived fees. I don't know if it's ever, always been unanimous, but we haven't done that. And as much as I would love to do that, right, it's not fiscally responsible. We have taxpayer dollars paying for these services. I don't know how we can delineate between who deserves it and who doesn't when it comes to not-for-profits.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Well, myself, like many others here, we are fortunate to collect 2 union pensions in our house. Thank you, Jesus. We appreciate that, and we love the union, and we support the union, and they've supported me, so that's much appreciated. But I just think going forward, there has to be some sort of definition, separating or stating what needs to be done, how you need to qualify, if at all we give a discount, if we don't give a discount. Somewhere along the way, there has to be a precedent set. I noticed that I don't see anything on the city website that says City of Kenosha is a sponsor of Labor Fest. And I don't see anything in the Labor Fest ads that says City of Kenosha is a sponsor. So, I mean, there's a lot of things on here that just don't come together in my mind. I can't speak for anybody else. I just think I'm gonna vote in favor of this, but I think going forward, before this comes up again next year, that we need to have a ordinance that addresses all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman from the 3rd.
Yes, thank you. Well, we'll let the gentleman from the 17th speak, and then
No, you're in line.
because I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to then call the question after I speak, but
Go ahead, sir.
well, anyway, the ultimate question here, and the difference, and like the gentleman from the 10th has said, there's not an equivalency between this and that. And as a matter of fact, Labor Fest did in fact use Kenosha City Parks in the past. For several years, they did the Labor Fest in Columbus Park. So, I mean, that's, I don't know if you remember it, but that was quite a while ago. But at the same time, but the thing is, it's the difference between Labor Fest and other groups looking to have their fees waived is quite simply city sponsorship. The city is sponsoring it, and I understand the lady from the 4th having something, but the city has always been a co-sponsor of Labor Fest, along with the county. So having said that, I will yield the floor, and hopefully we will put this to a vote.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to give you a different perspective. I'm new to the council. Been in the city for 18 years, grew up in Chicago, big union city, worked in the freight and logistics industry for many years, including ABF, which is a big, huge Teamster company. So I've got nothing against unions. The only thing I have an issue with, I'm going to concur with the gentleman from the 1st, 5th, and 7th. This is just setting a precedent of why we're going to waive the fees. And if I take Mr. Gallo for his word, it's only going to be $550. I'm sure after 45 minutes of this discussion, we could have passed a hat around here and raised $550 and not wasted our residents' time arguing about $550. When in 3 more items, we're going to be voting on a $6.7 million check, which I believe based on history. We're not even going to have a question about it. We're just going to approve it and be done with it. So, again, being new to the council, talking to residents and just how government works, people are frustrated because here we are sitting here for 45 minutes talking about $550, whether approve it. I mean, I'm almost at a point where I'll just write a check for $550 and let's just move on. So, so other than that, I think it's a great fest, great history. Unions are what Labor Day was built on. So I appreciate the opportunity, but I just think it's going to set a bad precedence moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gentleman from the 7th.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for Mr. Gallo. Mr. Gallo, if this gets denied tonight, will Labor Fest still occur? Or is this necessary for it to happen? If we don't have the $550 or whatever it is from us, will Labor Fest still continue?
I'm always speaking for myself, but yeah, I think that we would absolutely go forward with it. I would like to have your support on the resolution. I think that from the get-go, going back to January, in our meeting with the mayor, when it was flatly stated that the city would be a co-sponsor, and I can tell you that the city has been a co-sponsor for the 40-plus years that we have held the event. I also believe that it was in the written material that I sent to each alderman with the synopsis of what our plans were for Labor Fest and inviting you all. I believe it said in there very clearly that Kenosha was a co-sponsor. And so if anybody was misled, I'm not sure, where that came from, but the city has always been a co-sponsor of the event. So it's not setting a precedent. That precedent has been set for 40-plus years.
Okay. So then a question for Mr. Yan. Are we a sponsor now, or does this vote make us be a sponsor? Does our vote make us the city a sponsor, or are we already a sponsor? The waiving of the fees, is that what constitutes a sponsorship?
I can talk, but I can't be heard.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We are already a sponsor. We have been a co-sponsor for this event for many, many years. We are presently a co-sponsor. In some ways, this is a city event, not just labor organizations event, but it's also a city event. We are presently a sponsor. This will not change that.
Okay, thank you.
And gentleman from the 1st.
Well, I had a similar question, I guess, maybe through the chair to whomever, or maybe through the chair to the chair.
I was waiting for that to come around.
Well, you were elected after January 25th, right? So we know that these discussions happened ahead of time. So the whole sponsor idea, is this the typical way that we have city-sponsored events? Is this very, if we have a protocol for a city-sponsored event, does it typically come through here as resolution? I mean, again, using my exposure as being the chair of Parks and a park commissioner, waiving fees is typically not through resolution, because the Parks Commission themselves had the authority to waive these fees, right? And I probably wouldn't, based on history and things like that, and my inability to be able to justify one versus the other, and whatever terms you want to use, drawing the line, et cetera, right? So this is, again, repeating myself, here we are, January 25th is apparently when the on-the-record discussion took place, and now we're asking to waive the fees a couple of weeks before the event. And I can't articulate enough that this just really looks bad, right? I knew nothing about waiving fees for this event until that resolution came forward. No one talked to me about this. I didn't know it back on January 25th. I didn't know it on April 8th when it came to my agenda. And it's really embarrassing that we have to sit here and have to try to be fair. And again, I'll just repeat, I can't in any good faith support one event over another event You might say whatever it is, we're sponsored, whatever else. It came to us notice as a typical event like any other event that uses the band shell on that site. If there was a different plan in mind, it should have started there, right? That's my opinion. So you can choose to chime in or not, but months and months and months away, we decide to sponsor. Are we going to have to do sponsorships now through resolution for events that come to us as a non-sponsored event and then flip it over to a sponsored event?
Mr. Chair, what I would say this. I have been a long supporter of this event. I did have a chance to talk to my predecessor as this was making its way. There was discussions with Mr. Gallo and the organization. We have city-sponsored events. Those typically run through Chris Coachman's office. I think all of you get notification of what those are. It would be my intention that we should have that discussion, probably starting with Mr. Gallo, probably right after Labor Day this year, as to what, if in fact Labor Fest will continue in 2025 and beyond, as to whether or not that event should be on that city-sponsored event list. I believe it should. I guess I will chalk this up to perhaps some confusion between an outgoing administration and an incoming administration, that maybe there was some confusion there. And I would ask for some latitude on that. And I think we can, I think as the lady from the 4th said, I think we need to, look at this and any event as to what our city-sponsored events moving forward, as to whether or not Labor Fest should be on there. I believe it should. And I think that in the interest of time, I think we should, I would recommend moving this forward tonight with the understanding that I should be here for at least another 3.5 years. And I think we can work out the details of city-sponsored events moving forward, ensuring that you and your commission, if they involve parks, have a role to play in that discussion.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So, and I have no problem moving this forward. It's just not going to be my vote. So I'm not going to, if it passes, great. But as I mentioned earlier, the Parks Commission is a little bit different. We have jurisdiction over these types of things as a body for things that would never even come to council if they would have asked to have the fees waived. Again, speaking for myself, would not have approved it. So to remain consistent, remain fair, I'm in a little bit different position being a park commissioner than other people are, okay? So I have to look at the way I consistently vote, fairly vote, and represent Parks Commission. The other 12 people, a little bit different in my opinion, right? And I'm not going to tell anybody how to vote. I'm not going to hold it against anybody, right? I believe this is an important event. I think we could have done it differently, to your point. And, I hope it's allowed to move forward. We give it as much support as we can, including whatever I can do to make it a very successful event. But I just honestly cannot support it as a park commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no more lights, motion on the floor is approval of item I1. Roll call, please.
Motion carries 9-6 and 1 alderperson abstaining.
Okay, please continue.